Good morning, I'm Frank Ricks. I'm managing partner of Linear Kiss Architects and Planners. We're based here in Memphis, and it's home for us. We work around the country, so we see a lot of different things. And about 15 years ago, I was exposed through those relationships to ULI, Urban Land Institute. And I was hooked the first meeting I went to. In fact, one of the first meetings that I went to, I attended a session, I think it was in Texas, at Dallas, where the meeting was. And it was about regional dialogue and regional planning and thoughts, and I couldn't get it out of my head. You know, I thought that makes way too much sense. And so it's been a passion of mine to see this happen. So I'm delighted to see people return, and hopefully this will continue to grow, and we'll see great fruits from everyone's labor and hard work, and thanks to everyone that helped put this together. So I think it's critically important that we have this dialogue and this conversation. And it's all the things that Chris just talked about. It's also, how do we retain what's unique about our place? That's from landscape to the food to whatever it is. And how do we keep that at the same time? How do we grow? How do we leverage? The big issue is, how do we do it across the mighty Mississippi? And sometimes just that line on a piece of paper between Memphis and northern Mississippi could be another mighty Mississippi too, right? But that's who we are, and it's us. And it's how do we bridge those barriers at times and be one when we need to be one. And it's from music and food to industry and manufacturing and all of that, jobs creation, education, it's all those things. That's what makes a vibrant city and makes a great place. So on that note, I have the pleasure of introducing Peter Kageyama to you. Peter's the author of 2 books. Do I have one here? Yeah. All right. So we've got, and Peter's around, and he will sign these if you like to collect signed books like I do. Peter, just got to know Peter last night a bit. I have heard of him numerous times, and he is brings a unique perspective, and so he's going to tell you about that. But Peter is the author for The Love of Cities, Love Affair Between People and Their Places, and the follow-up, Love Where You Live, Creating Emotionally Engaging Places. He's a former president of Creative Tampa, a grassroots community change organization, and the co-founder of Creative City Summit. He's a senior fellow with the Alliance for Innovation, which is a national network of city leaders and special advisor to America in Bloom. So he's a very highly sought after speaker. We're fortunate to have him here. And after Peter speaks, we will have Mayor George Howell of Morehead, Mississippi, who will share his thoughts on how the concepts that Peter's going to discuss apply to his town. And I had the pleasure of meeting Mayor Howell last night, and I think you'll enjoy his experiences and his insight. Welcome, Peter.
I used to be a dancer, so coming out of the wings, it's like, this is fun. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak with you guys today. I'm going to start with that, and then I'm going to start with a question. This is an interesting question. The question is, do you love your city? And of course you do. I mean, that's kind of why you're here. You're sort of in the business of loving your cities, loving your communities. And we would like to believe that that is a commonly held notion. And certainly in this room, I do believe that is true. But the sad truth is that not enough of us, not nearly enough of us, actually love our cities. So it is on us, those of us who actually do love a place. We need to be the emotional standard bearers and carry that message of love out there to our fellow citizens, to help them see and feel the city the way that we do. Because remember this, emotions are contagious. You smile, I smile. You cry, I feel bad. When more people start saying they love your community, more people are going to see it, more people are going to feel it, more people are going to believe it. And maybe we create a virtuous cycle, which is of course the antidote to the vicious cycle, where good things are compounding upon good things, and all of a sudden people are going to say, hey, have you been to Memphis lately? It's like, yeah, there's some good stuff going on. Yeah, you kind of feel it there as well. So that is our challenge here, is to add this emotional component to what we're already doing. We're very smart about our cities. What I'm here today to talk to you about is how we become and allow ourselves to become more emotional about our places. Now, for most citizens, the nature of their relationship can actually be sort of summarized with their relationship with their cities can be summarized by one thing, and it's actually the pothole. Now, none of us like potholes, and communities everywhere spend millions of dollars, fixing potholes there. I can tell you this: we fix every pothole in the Delta region. I'm now using that term. In the Delta region, we fix every pothole here in Memphis. And we, the collective citizens, would yawn, stretch, and say, "Yeah, thanks. Roads don't suck quite so bad." There's no love for fixing potholes. There is no emotional return on investment for fixing potholes. This is not to say we're going to stop fixing the potholes, but I think we can agree that we should aspire to something more. Now here's the tricky part. Our citizens know to ask you guys to fix the potholes. It's obvious. There's a hole in the road, my car's going to fall onto it, somebody needs to fix that, right? But our citizens don't necessarily know how to ask for other things. Things like beauty and art and great design. That is not in their lexicon. So we as leaders in a place not only have to listen to what they're asking for, and of course they're going to ask for the most basic of things. Hey, fix the potholes, provide police and fire service. Like, of course, they want that, they need that. But at heart, we know they want something more. And after we've given it to them, they're going to say, how the heck did I ever live without this? So as we're building this better city, we have to meet some minimum threshold requirements. To be a working city, of course, you have to be functional and you have to be safe. But a few years ago, remember when budgets everywhere got cut to the bone? There was this notion that says, you know what, money's tight. And money's always tight. It says money's tight, so you know what, let's make it functional, let's make it safe, we paint it battleship gray, kick it out the door, and that's good enough for right now. No, I don't think so. I don't think even the most fiscally conservative tax hawks amongst us want to live in a merely functional, safe, and battleship gray community, okay? So what could we aspire to? What should we aspire to in our places? Well, how about comfort? Why can't the city be comfortable? How about conviviality in the sense that the city actually helps facilitate bringing us together and connecting us with our fellow citizens? Why isn't the city interesting? And maybe even more appropriately, why isn't the city fun? Where's the fun is a perfectly legitimate question that we should be asking a whole heck of a lot more in the context of better city making. Now, think about this. All of us have been involved in some meeting back in the office where we're there with our team wrestling with some big hairy problem down there in the weeds, right? Those meetings are terrible. Maybe you're here today to avoid that meeting back at the office. If so, good on you. But inevitably, we're going to get pulled into that meeting. But the next time we find ourselves in that meeting, it'd be interesting if one of you would raise your hand and say, okay, I see what we're doing here, but I got to ask, where's the fun? Because when you ask that question, you change the dynamic in the room and the way people are fundamentally thinking about the problem. You'll ask, where's the fun? Someone might actually look up from their phone, and they might smile a little bit and go, yeah, where is the fun? And in that moment, you've opened up the door to the possibility of something beyond a merely technically sufficient solution. Where's the fun? Great question to ask. Now, all of us have been involved in all kinds of projects that have all kinds of requirements and specifications, right? When was the last time you ever saw fun as a stated, articulated goal of any project you've ever worked on? Even a project which by its very nature should have been fun, like let's say a park or a playground. No, not one mentioned the word fun. All kinds of environmental, structural, and insurance requirements, not one mentioned the word fun. Well, how about if we at least plant that seed, and maybe somebody who's at least, who's delivering that solution a little bit closer to that solution, they might go, management wants it to be fun. How about if I try this? I don't know what this is today. You don't have to know what this is today, but maybe somebody who's a little closer to that particular problem, they might have a pretty good idea what this could be in the context of that particular problem if we at least plant the hope and the aspiration of something beyond merely technically sufficient. So I'd encourage you to keep asking that question, where's the fun? Now, as I talk to people all over the world now about their places, I ask them about what do they love about their places. And over again, people tell me really interesting things. And for the most part, the common theme around what people tend to love about their places, they actually tend to be relatively small things, kind of personal things, kind of intimate things. And in my books, I've likened them to the idea of a handwritten note that goes with the gift, a love note, if you will. Guys, we learned this lesson. At some point in our life, we gave a gift to our significant other and we forgot to give a card or a note with that gift, right? This was a mistake. Because that card, that note meant something. Since we took a moment, we made it special, we made it personal. And that small thing had an outsized impact on the way they felt about the gift, by extension, the way they felt about us. Small thing, outsized impact. These love notes are things that cities will give to their citizens, and if cities are very, very lucky, citizens might actually be inclined to give back to their cities as well. I've got a few examples here for you. Any of you folks been up to Boston in the last about 3 years now? This is the Lawn on D. It runs from May through October there, and it's adjacent to the Boston Convention Center. Now, Boston, the Convention Center had about a 3-acre lot of land, and they were trying to figure out how to activate that space. And their solution, for lack of a better description, was to create sort of an adult playground. So what they did is they brought in the really comfy Adirondack chairs, they brought in swings, but not just any kind of swings, they brought in adult-sized swings, right? Because why should kids have all the fun? And then they started to program the heck out of that space. So there's all kinds of wine tastings, there's beer gardens, there's music, there's yoga classes, there's Zumba, there's cornhole, there's giant Jenga, right? Giant Jenga, by the way, is a spectator sport, because when that thing starts to tilt, you will stop and you will watch, right? So again, they're trying to create this sort of sense of activity, and again, activating that space. Fantastic idea. In the grand scheme of Boston, this is a small thing. But if you go there during the summer and you have that experience, I guarantee you, it will have an outsized impact in the way you see and the way you feel about Boston as a whole. Small thing, outsized impact. And I have to say, yesterday, Frank took me around and I got to see the Crosstown Center. This is an amazing project. If you have not seen this, this is that 1.4 million square foot former Sears distribution center that's just outside of downtown here. Amazing. Fantastic. A huge love note. Pretty expensive love note. I totally get that. But what a fantastic outcome this is going to be. It's opening up in August. They're mixed use, commercial. Boom, where we go? There we go. Inside, still the finish is obviously being put on, but there are already people living in here as well. Some of the retail is starting to come in. This is stunning. I'm sure you guys, absolutely amazing. Now, the thing that I think is even more important about this of course is a love note, a big love note. But this actually does something else, because this has sat fallow since like 1993, apparently. 1983 is when Sears sort of closed it. There was 10 years of stuff going on there. But then it just sat empty. Imagine that, a big, giant white elephant that just sits there and reminds you of something leaving. That's a failure. That's a hole in the fabric of your community. So not only is this a love note, this does a lot in terms of the restorative power of bringing a community back and believing in itself. All of you probably have something like this in your hometown. It may not be 1.4 million square feet, but there's always something that some business left, something left, and it just sits empty and it reminds us of something when something was better. Well, when we fix those kinds of things, not only do we get the benefit of the new love note, we actually heal something in our communities there as well. So these holes in the fabric of our community, when we can fix those, that is an important, important thing. And congratulations to the Crosstown folks. This is absolutely amazing. On a slightly smaller note, dog parks are love notes. With apologies to those of you who own cats and birds and fish and ferrets. You don't walk your cat. And if you do, people think you're a little odd, right? No, we walk our dogs. So when we walk our dogs, we're actually out there using green space, interacting with the environment, interacting with each other, creating this sort of sense of activity. And dog parks are probably the most social places in the entire city. People talk to each other at the dog park. Now, they may not know your name, but they know your dog's name, right? And eventually they might learn your name as well. And that's a little bit of social capital that didn't exist before. It's because the dogs have essentially broken the ice for you and negotiated that encounter. Great. Side benefit. In a time when we probably still can't afford more police and more surveillance equipment, the dogs and the dog owners provide a sense of safety. That's not because we have to own an attack dog or anything like that, no. But the fact is that we dog owners are out there at all hours of the day and night walking our dogs, creating what Jane Jacobs, the great urbanist, called the eyes of strangers on the street. There's nothing worse than walking down a completely empty street, right? We feel very exposed by that. But hey, if there's a dog and a dog walker out there, it's all good. So maybe there's some neighborhoods back home we'd like to see get better. Maybe it's as simple as a little strategically placed dog park. Maybe it's even simpler. It's one of those mitts in a stand and a place that's sort of the poop that basically says dogs are welcome here. It is amazing to me how dogs in cities humanize cities for the better. I love a good mural. Murals, I think, are fantastic. They dress up cities, they create a sense of activity. Awesome. This is a mural from downtown St. Petersburg, Florida, where I live. Nikola Tesla. That's awesome. I look at that and go, wow, that is beautiful. But I don't have any artistic talent when it comes to painting like this. Most of us probably don't. So we look appreciatively at this, but there's what I would call an emotional distance between me and this mural. I look at it, I appreciate it, but again, a bit of a distance. So there's some folks in Ludington, Michigan, which is sort of on you know how people in Michigan, they do the hand? So it's like right there in the knuckle, on the west coast of Michigan, right there, about halfway up on the lake. It's about 3 summers ago. They had this really ugly downtown wall. And what they did is they commissioned an artist to come in and do sort of a paint by numbers outline on that particular wall. And over one particular weekend, they invited the entire community to come down, grab a number, grab a bucket of paint, go paint your number. And the result was this. Now, as art goes, it's not high art, but it is highly interactive public art. It's the kind of public art people are going to look at and they're going to point to and say, hey, I helped paint that. And we feel very differently about something we have had a hand in the making of. So maybe one of the key things we got to be thinking about here is how do we allow more of our fellow citizens to roll up their sleeves and get a little dirty and get in the mix? I know that makes risk managers and city attorneys a little bit nervous, but you know what? Who runs the city? I think it's you guys, it's mayors, it's council there. And if we can figure out how to do this kind of stuff, and again, a very different relationship with something we have had a hand in the making of. I want to include this one for a couple of reasons. It's a great example of sort of the outside of the box thinking that ordinary citizens who don't look at the problem the same way bring to the table. And it also ties into one of your speakers later this afternoon. So Walk Raleigh. So in January of 2012, a graduate student by the name of Matt Tomasulo spent a weekend hanging up a bunch of signs in downtown Raleigh. And unlike most signs which are typically all about cars and traffic, these were signs that were all about people and walking. And I interviewed Matt for my second book, and he told me the whole idea behind this was to get people to consider the option of walking. Because let's face it, most of us will reflexively get in our cars even to go just a few blocks, just out of habit, right? But hey, if you knew it was an 18-minute walk, 7-minute walk, 10-minute walk, it's like, hey, yeah, it's a nice day. Yeah, let's go for a walk. Yeah, my doctor says I need to get more exercise. Yeah, my Fitbit's telling me I need more steps. Okay, let's go for a walk. Awesome. So he began trying to start a conversation about walking in his city, and he did. People were buzzing about this stuff. They go, yeah, we actually have a pretty walkable downtown. Press coverage around this was universally positive. In fact, it was so good that a couple weeks after the signs went up, a BBC film crew showed up because they'd heard Americans had discovered walking in cities. Like, hey, cool. All good, right? Well, about a month after the signs went up, one of those reporters from the local newspaper called up the city, the planning director of the city, a gentleman by the name of Mitchell Silver, who you're going to hear from later today, who's now in New York City. And they called up Mitchell, and they said, hey, excuse me, Mr. Silver, it didn't appear that anyone had permission to put up those signs. And Mitchell said, yeah, thanks a lot, man. Now we got to take the signs down. So yeah, they did. They had to take the signs down because technically Matt did not have permission to put the signs back up. Now Mitchell was a big fan of the signs. Within a matter of days, he was able to bring the signs back under the auspices of a pilot project. And what this project really underscores to me is that you need a good city planner, for one thing, but it really underscores to me something else, which is that sometimes you gotta break the rules in order to get to the place you actually want to be. Now, I'm a lawyer by training. One of the things I remember from law school is there's the letter of the law and there's the spirit of the law. And in between the two, there's a tension. And in that tension, the law evolves. Well, of course, in our cities, there's the rules, the code, the regulations, but then there's the goal. And the goal should be a better, more interesting, more lovable city. Well, sometimes our rules and regulations don't allow us to get there, or they don't allow us to get there in the most expeditious way possible. And sometimes you need somebody who's willing to step outside the system to help unjam the system and again, get us the place we know we actually want to be. Now, we got a lot of mayors, in the audience here today, and I get that maybe it's not the best thing for the mayor to be seen as the rule breaker in that sense. Because if somebody says, well, if the mayor's breaking that rule, I wonder what other rules the mayor's breaking. And who wants to invite that kind of scrutiny? I totally get that. But if you were, if you were in that position, if you can't be that rule breaker and risk taker, then have the backs of those who do. Because when they're doing something like this, they're absolutely performing a public service. If Matt was in the sign selling business, this would have been received very differently. But he's not. He's trying to start a conversation in the city. He's trying to do something positive for a city, and it was received in that particular way. Now, who are really good rule breakers and risk takers? Young people and artists. Young people will run through that metaphorical wall and leave a person-sized outline as they go through it, and that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Most of us, we've run through enough walls by now, and we're a little reluctant to do it anymore because we know it hurts. But God bless those young people. They have that energy, that enthusiasm. Go, right? And artists will sometimes take on authority just because they're artists, and that's pretty cool too. I got kind of a fun example of that, and it's from Grand Rapids, Michigan. So Grand Rapids is home to the Art Prize competition, which happens every fall. So about 5 years ago, this artist approached the Art Prize folks with this idea. It says, hey, I want to do these Chinese lanterns for Art Prize. And they said, well, that involves fire, right? They go, yeah. And they showed them the design, which is actually very clever in terms of how it prevented any sort of fire from actually happening. And they said, don't worry, we're only going to do 2,000 of them. Oh, okay, 2,000, that sounds reasonable. So I went to the city. City looked at the designs, so 2,000, sure, cool. And then went to the fire marshal. Fire marshal looked at the design, says 2,000, okay, fine, go. Well, of course, the actual night of the event, the artist showed up and they launched 20,000 of these lanterns. Right? And by all accounts, it was one of the most spectacular nights in recent Grand Rapids history. Amazing. Now, 2,000 would have been beautiful. Again, 20,000 is spectacular. And I had a chance to talk to the leadership there in Grand Rapids about this, and I asked them about this. As well, officially, we might not do it again. They said, at the very least, we'd ask some different questions. Okay, fair enough. But privately, they said, it's the coolest thing ever. I'm so glad it actually happened. Wow, that's pretty awesome. Again, 2,000 is beautiful, 20,000 is spectacular. Millennium Park in Chicago, big love note, expensive love note. How many folks have been? Yeah, it's kind of required if we're going to be placemakers to to look at Millennium Park. This is Cloud Gate. Of course, locally it's known as the bean. And the first time you approach the bean, you're going to do this. You're going to find your own reflection. You're going to take your own picture. Selfie. Click. You'll take your friend's picture. You'll take this skyline picture, right? And while you're doing that, you're seeing lots of people coming up and interacting with the art, touching the art. Art you can touch. That's a little crazy, right? And as you look over your shoulder, you're going to see these. Those 2 water towers, right? And the water towers are actually covered in video screens. So these eyes will open, they'll smile at you. And then during the summer months, they have these water cannons that shoot water out onto the deck, creating what is essentially a giant above-ground pool. And on a typical summer day, you will see hundreds of kids playing in that pool. So city making point number 1 that we'd all do very well to remember is when kids are happy, parents are happy, right? We know this, we feel this. And kids love these water features. Cities, not so much, because they're kind of expensive. They always break down, and those darling children will sometimes do unspeakable things in there, and somebody has to clean that stuff up. Now, I don't have a solution to that last bit, but I did take this picture in a little town outside of Pittsburgh. This is Braddock, Pennsylvania. It's about 5 summers ago. Hot summer day, little downtown park, kids are playing, and here in the corner, that is a garden hose. I believe we have a tendency to overthink the solutions to our city's problems. Because you know what? The city manager's handbook says, oh, you want a splash pad? You want a water feature? Well, it costs this much money. I don't have that much money. Well, you know, trying to find the budget next year, meantime, too bad, so sad. What's wrong with going down to Home Depot, spending 20 bucks, buying a garden hose, and turning on the faucet? Nothing. In fact, there's everything right with that kind of solution. It says, hey, we're being financially responsible, we're being creative, and most importantly, we're being responsive to the wants and needs of our community. That is pretty awesome. Is this the be-all, end-all solution? No, absolutely not. But again, it gets us down the road. And too often I hear cities and organizations almost apologize for their garden hose solutions. Says, well, we wanted to do this, budget was tight, we had to do that. No, you should be saying, you know what? We wanted to do this, budget was tight, but we're able to do this. And you should be trumpeting this as a triumph over adversity, which is exactly what it is. Never apologize for your garden hose solutions. They show you again at your very best. Be financially responsible, creative, and responsive to the wants and needs of your community. So the next time you find yourself in that situation where you don't have all the budget that you'd like, and let's face it, when do we ever have as much budget as we'd like? Ask ourselves that question. What is the garden hose solution that, again, gets us down the road and allows us to be responsive to the wants and needs of our community? Garden hose solution. Play. I think play is really important. I think play is central to our relationships with other people. Think about those unstructured, unplanned moments when you're hanging out with your friends and family just at play. They're like the bedrock of our relationships with other people. Well, we're in a relationship with our cities as well. And we need opportunities to play with our cities. And I think public art is one of those great ways where play can actually happen in our cities. So my fiancée Michelle and I were in Anchorage, Alaska. We've been together like 10 years. We actually just got engaged like last December. So I'm still wrapping my head around that word fiancé. But yes, my fiancée, Michelle and I, were in Anchorage, Alaska. This would be about 4 Februaries ago. And we found this little downtown park, and these are the remnants of their holiday ice sculptures. Obviously still quite cold in February in Anchorage. So Michelle goes and she sits down on this caboose here, and this little girl in yellow walked up and goes, hey, you're in my spot. So we had to move. And when we moved, we find this. So city making point number 2. You want people to make that face in your city. When people make that face in your city, good things are going to happen in your city. Not only are we going to go back and tell folks, hey, we had a great time in Anchorage, Alaska. We're going to put up all kinds of good stuff on social media, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're going to write some positive Yelp reviews. We're going to be in a good mood, and we're probably going to spend some money. And people don't make that face in your city when you fix potholes for them. No. They make that face in your city when you surprise and delight them. Surprise, delight, like fun, don't have to cost a whole lot of money, but they do need to be seen as legitimate objectives in the work that we do. Now think about this. We've got a bunch of mayors in the office. Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor, when was the last time you went into the office with the idea of saying, today I shall surprise and delight the citizens of Moorhead, right? That's probably not often, but that's a good day to go to work. And again, doesn't have to cost much money, because you know what she's sitting in? Frozen water. Frozen water, some creativity, some imagination, and thinking about the problem in a different way. Granted, frozen water is easier to come by in Anchorage, Alaska than it is in Florida, where I live. Nonetheless, there's always something lying around that if we thought about it in a different way, we might come up with some really interesting opportunities there in our cities. So what would it look like if a city embraced this idea of surprise and delight? Well, it might look something like Greenville, South Carolina. Now, Greenville will make the argument that they're the best downtown in America, and they make a pretty strong case for it. This is their downtown, this is their main street, great tree canopy there. Both sides of the street, all kinds of local restaurants, local shops. At the far end of this road, there's this amazing waterfall and this park called Falls Park. with this fantastic footbridge that goes across it. It is amazing. It is sensational. It is so good other cities go there to study it. Yet the thing that surprised and delighted me, my lasting memory, and the story I tell to folks like you is actually something very, very small. It's actually the mice on Main. These little brass mice, and the story goes like 14 years ago, a high school student came into the mayor's office with this idea. Says, hey, Mr. Mayor, I want to do this scavenger hunt downtown. I want to put these little brass mice downtown and encourage people to sort of go and explore the city as they're looking for the mice. Mayor said, interesting. How much money do you need? The kid said like $1,200. And for $1,200, you bet, the mayor said, sold. So cast the mice and put them downtown. Now you'll see people walking around downtown. They get these maps in the restaurants and shops. It says, okay, come to this particular street corner, turn 45 degrees, look up. Boom. And you'll hear kids, women, and grown men squealing with delight once they found one of these mice. And after you found one of these mice, you're looking everywhere for these damn things. Like, oh, there's another one. And you find yourself looking at stuff you otherwise wouldn't have even bothered to look at, with a very different sort of experience in the city. And the mice, they're all very cute. They've all been given names. They've all been given a backstory. It's all been collected in this really cool children's book called The Mice on Main. Awesome. So again, amidst all this incredibly well done big stuff, and by big stuff, I do mean expensive stuff, my lasting impression, and I'm certain I'm not alone in this, is actually something that small. So yes, these little things in your cities can absolutely make a huge difference in the way people feel about these places, your places. I do recognize, however, that sometimes we gotta go big. This is the Denver Convention Center. This is a piece of public art called I See What You Mean, but of course locally it's known as the Big Blue Bear. Now, the Big Blue Bear has become a very beloved piece of public art. It's about 12, 13 years old now. But that wasn't necessarily always the case. And can you imagine the first time that artist came to the city council with that idea? I got an idea. I want to do the statue. It's going to be a bear. It's going to be really, really big. And oh, by the way, it's going to be blue. I suppose that conversation goes over the first time council hears that. Seriously? Do you know how many potholes we could fix for the cost of that ridiculous bear? And therein lies your challenge. Yes, the bear has a cost. And if you're one of those people who sees the world through that lens, if everything is about the pure financial accounting of things, the cost of things, you can always justify not doing something by saying, you know what, we can always fix more potholes, which again is technically true. But in addition to having a cost, the bear has a value. And to me, the value of the Big Blue Bear is once you've seen the Big Blue Bear, you cannot unsee the Big Blue Bear, right? You'll always associate that with Denver. You'll always smile and go, yeah, that's Denver. And people take a ton of photographs of this thing. And every one of those photographs that goes out there on social media, every one of those is a little smile, is a postcard, is a love note from the city of Denver. That has value. You know, too often folks want to hold, you know, our elected officials' feet to the fire about the cost, the cost, the cost. They seem to be obsessed about this. Well, these people who seem to know the cost of everything, they don't seem to understand the value of anything. Because things have a value beyond the purely financial. And if we want to live in the type of community that has room for things like beauty and art, great design and big blue bears, then we have to fight for this. We have to justify why we're doing this. So fine, the next time we're having this conversation, it says fine, let's talk about the cost. Well, let's also talk about the value. And again, things have a value beyond the purely financial. And if they really want to get snippy about this, let's talk about the cost of ugly. Let's talk about the cost of boring. Because those things absolutely do have a cost. But most folks have never thought about it in those types of terms. We can absolutely win this argument. We need to win this argument if we're going to build the type of cities that I think we all actually want to live in. The ultimate, though, in terms of lovable cities are, of course, people. They're the people that are desperately, passionately in love with their cities. The ones who go above and beyond ordinary levels of citizenship will sometimes do extraordinary things for their places, not because they're paid to, but this is how their sense of community, how their sense of creativity manifests in some amazing, amazing ways. I call these folks co-creators because they're essentially co-creating the experience of the city along with most of you. Most of you, it is sort of your job to create the content that is your cities, right? Then there's these other folks who aren't paid to do it, but they absolutely add to the mix in what we do. Like my friend Bob Devin Jones here. Bob is the creative director of a small black box theater in downtown St. Petersburg, where I live. And for those of us who live in St. Pete, we know how important Bob is to making St. Pete a great place to live, work, and play. But Bob's not going to show up on any city org chart, most powerful, most influential business person. No, none of that. But again, those of us who live there, we know how important Bob is to our community. And all of you know your community's version of Bob Devin Jones. Some of you may actually be your community's version of Bob Devin Jones in your sort of secret alter ego, co-creative life when you're sort of outside of your official sort of capacity. And as much as we love what you do and what Bob does, because we see you around town, I see Bob at the coffee shop all the time, there's still this notion that says, you know, that's just Bob being Bob. No, I gotta tell you, Bob being Bob is extraordinary. And we need more of that. Because Bob does not see the problem the same way that we do. And consequently, his solutions are going to be very different than the ones we might be able to officially come up with. And we need that. A lot of times our elected officials, you'd love to do the wild and crazy thing, but you know how hard that is. Like, well, wait a minute, there is reasons why we maybe can't do that, but you'd love it if somebody else would. So we need to pair that stuff up. This good top-down stuff that we're very smart about, we need that, but we also need this interesting bottom-up stuff happening. That folks like Bob who get in the game and again, don't see the problem in the same way, and their solutions, very different, but very complementary to the good work that we are already doing. Yeah, that's when things get really, really interesting. This is kind of a fun one. Paulo's from Seattle. He might have seen this one there as well, but check this out.
My name is Peregrine Church. I make things that make the world a more interesting place, like a rainwork. Rainworks are pieces of street art that only appear when they're wet, and they're messages or images designed to make people's rainy day a little bit better. Seattle is associated with rain, it's fair to say, and rainworks just all it needs to be is wet, so it's sort of the ideal Seattle art. So the stuff that makes rainworks is biodegradable, environmentally friendly, and completely non-toxic. The essential ingredient when making rainworks is the super hydrophobic coating.
Okay, let's see how it works on the never wetted shirt. So you want me to start on the shirt, right?
That is a chemical that when you put it on a surface will prevent that surface from getting wet.
What?
I was just browsing the internet one day and stumbled across a viral video, and the video showed like these really vivid images of like red wine pouring off a white shirt and chocolate syrup pouring off white shoes and people getting buckets of water thrown on them and they're like totally fine. And I'm like, well, that's super cool. What can I do with this? It's a spray-on substance, so it made sense. It's like, what if you sprayed it through a stencil? So if you put it on concrete, well, ideally it'd be invisible. Instead of the concrete getting dark, the water will just roll right off it and it'll stay light colored. The contrast can be used to create an image. The very first one I did, since stayed dry out there and had a bunch of raindrops falling, it was on a bus stop. And now there's about 25 to 30 rainworks out there. There's a lily pad and pond with frogs hopping between them in Ballard. There's I Heart Rain in UW. At 4th and Bell it says, worry is a misuse of the imagination. There's Today's Weather, rain in Fremont. There's Proud to be Rainy in Capitol Hill. There's Hopscotch at the Junction in West Seattle, and we want to make way more. I mean, it's gonna rain no matter what, so why not do something cool with it?
So how fun is that? So I bet if we went back and talked with your public works folks back in your hometown, asked them about this stuff, they go, oh yeah, super hydrophobic coating, we've known about that for years. But they never thought to do something like that with it. And that again is the genius that ordinary citizens who don't look at the problem in the same way bring to the table when they decide to get involved in their places. So these co-creators matter. Sometimes they matter a lot. And maybe what happens is the right co-creator comes along at the right time, in the right place, with the right problem, and you might have a game changer for your community. And that's exactly what happened in Grand Rapids, Michigan. January 2011, Newsweek magazine published a list that no city in America wanted to be on. It's a list of America's 10 most dying cities. It's based upon population loss between 2000 and 2010. Grand Rapids ends up on that list. Now, if somebody says something bad about our city, what's our typical response? Like, oh, well, let's get the PR team working, get the marketing folks, get the message out. We are not a dying city. Well, think back to 2011. Money's awfully tight for most cities, and Grand Rapids didn't have any extra money lying around for a new ad campaign. So, okay, what are we gonna do? We're gonna live with this moniker of being a dying city? We walks the guy in the green t-shirt. His name is Rob Bliss. He's 22 years old at the time, and he did social media for one of the local TV stations. So he comes to the powers that be and says, hey, I got an idea. We should do a lip dub. I'm sure somebody said, hey, lip what? There's a lip dub. It's lip syncing to a popular song. We can do the ULI lip dub here today. We'll put on some music, I'll get out my iPhone, we'll turn on the video, we'll start singing over here, you guys singing, solos down here at the end, done, right? Lip dub. Might be a little on the nose, might be a little boring, but it'll be a lip dub nonetheless. Rob said no, let's make it big, we'll make it epic. We'll shoot it downtown, we'll get everybody involved, we'll use YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, it'll go viral, it'll be epic, it'll be great. I suppose that conversation went over the first time the powers be heard that. Lip what? Using you who? Facebook, Twitter, don't know about that. Viral sounds bad. By the way, son, how old are you? Have you ever done this before? Let's face it, Rob does not look like your traditional city solutions provider. He's not wearing a suit, not wearing a tie, and more importantly, he doesn't have a stack of reports that say, hey, if we do this, we have these very predictable outcomes on the other end. No, none of that. He's 22 years old, he's got an idea and an enthusiasm, and he thinks he can pull it off. Now, maybe because they saw something in Rob, maybe because they had to. I suspect it was actually a combination of both. The cities did decide to move forward. It says, look, we really don't have any extra money, but we can provide police and fire service, we can close off some roads for you, and then they helped connect him with some private money, and in May of 2011, they shot the Grand Rapids Lipta. And is this amazing community response being declared a dying city by this outside entity. The whole thing is like 9.5 minutes long. I've got a little excerpt I'm going to show you. But the key thing to remember about this is that it involves over 5,000 people. It takes place over a 1-mile circuit all throughout downtown Grand Rapids, and it is shot as one continuous videotape. Check out this community's response to being declared a dying city. We might want to bring the volume down just a hair on this one. This one's a little louder.
Miss American Pie, my shirt to the lake, but the meadows dry. And the old boys are drinking whiskey and rye, saying this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. Can you help me out a little on that? Falling fast, the land had fallen on the grass. The players tried for a forward pass with a jester on the sidelines in a cast. Now the halftime air was sweet perfume while the sergeants played a marching tune. The flames climbed high into
Remember, everything is cooler with pyro no matter what the fire marshal says.
Satan laughing with delight today.
They said they picked this song because it's about life, death, and renewal. And I think it's because most of us know the words, right? At least to the chorus. Interesting, they did 5 takes of it. The 5th and final take is the one that they ended up using. Here comes the payoff. So that video has been viewed over 5 million times on YouTube. That story got picked up by national and international media. Rob was interviewed on Good Morning America, and Grand Rapids got tens of millions of dollars worth of positive brand exposure because they're willing to listen to a 22-year-old kid who had a weird, wacky, untested idea. What's the lesson for your city? Probably not to go out and do another lift up. It's been done. It's been done really, really well. But in the spirit of that lift up, let's recognize that the solutions to some of our problems may not look like any solution we've ever seen before. Nowhere in the city manager's handbook or in the ULI handbook is there a page on lift ups. No. And let's also recognize that the solutions providers may not look like the ones we're used to dealing with either. They may be younger, they could be older. They could have the hats on sideways, the pants down to here, the piercings, the tattoos, and those freaky earlobes go all the way down to here. And we as the adults in the room need to be okay with that. Because it'd have been a real shame if the powers that be said to Rob, thanks Mr. Bliss, we'll go talk to the marketing folks, we'll be fine. I don't know, I don't think we'll ever really know. But I suspect the real outcome of that is Rob probably would have said, you know what, heck with this. I would take my talents elsewhere. And that would have been a real loss for the city of Grand Rapids. Because Rob doesn't just show up to do the Grand Rapids lift up. No, he actually had an interesting track record with the city. His earliest project with the city, he organized pillow fights in the park with the city, which led him to doing this giant water slide in the heart of downtown Grand Rapids, which led him to the art prize competition for which they made 100,000 paper airplanes, and they took them off the roof, the tallest building in downtown Grand Rapids, while the symphony orchestra played below. And that set him up perfectly, in many ways, to be a hero for his community with the Grand Rapids lift up. But can you imagine the first time Rob comes into the city permits department, slides that permit across the table and says, okay, we're gonna help you today, son. Permit, please. Okay, what are we doing? Pillow fights in the park, please. Pillow fights in the park? Why don't we do that? Or pillow fights in the park? What kind of city do you think we are, son? But they didn't. Pillow fights in the park? Sure, cool, fine, go have fun. And they did. Rob and his friends went and had fun. They got some experiences. Hey, that was cool. Let's do something else. And they did. And they iterated. And 2 or 3 iterations down the road, they had a game changer for their community because somebody didn't step on that weird little project early on when they had the opportunity. That notion of citizens wanting to do something positive for their community is a precious, precious thing. And we as the leaders in the community need to do everything in our power to not squelch that enthusiasm. And most of the time we don't squelch it out of any sort of sense of animus or anything like that. No, but you know what? Most of the time we're the bureaucracy, we're the man, we're the woman, we're the people who make those decisions. And if something doesn't fit neatly into some box that we're familiar with, the sort of the easy answer, the lazy answer is, well, no. So let's at least recognize that. And maybe the next time somebody comes in front of you and they don't have all the polish or all the language, but man, they're excited about something. Maybe say, you know what, remember that guy Peter? He was talking about this stuff. It's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe put your arm around and say, hey, let's go chat in my office. Not quite sure what you're on about, but you're pretty excited about it. Maybe we can figure out a way to make this happen. Because we need these folks in our communities. Their energy, their enthusiasm, their ideas, the thing that they bring to the table. These folks, like Bob Devin and Peregrine and Rob, they're like the spice in what makes a great dish. You don't have to have a lot of spice to make for a flavorful dish, but you gotta have some, otherwise bland dish. You also need some spicy people in your community. The ones who look at something and go, I could do something with that. The ones who look at a 1.4 million square foot distribution center and says, what if we made it into this vertical urban village? Yeah, with a lot of art and stuff like that. Not a traditional developer at all. It was an art history professor. Frank will be very happy to tell you the story. It's a great story about that. People who don't look at the problem the same way are going to get different results. And we need to pair that up with the good top-down stuff that we do with this interesting bottom-up stuff happening there as well. You know, love is the best thing we do. And it's about time we applied the best thing we do to the places that we live. You know, and when we allow ourselves to become more emotional, to add that lens to this, and add this language, it opens up a whole new field of inquiry, a whole new field of conversation about building better places. And that's what ULI is at heart, is about. Better places, building better places. It's not just about roads and bridges and things like that, it is about better places. And better places implies a human element, an emotional element there as well. So if we're starting to add this to the mix, I think we're going to get better results. You know, there's a part of our conversation here today is going to be about creating livable cities, walkable cities, sustainable cities, all of which are very, very good goals. But I think the goal needs to be set even higher and a little bit different. The goal needs to be lovable cities. A city that grabs us by the heart and refuses to let us go. That's the kind of city I want to live in. It's the kind of city I know you want to live in. But that is the kind of city that has to be built in a different way. And it has to be built together. So, with that in mind, hopefully we have a different way of thinking about this, maybe a new language, maybe a new way to justify what you guys actually want to do. So I thank you for the opportunity to come and share this idea with you. I'm going to turn the stage over to the mayor from Moorhead, who's going to reflect a little bit about what he has seen here, what some of the love notes maybe that you are doing in your city. So thank you very, very much for the opportunity.
Good morning. Good morning. Frank, what's Frank? Frank is George Holland. Hollland. I am George Holland, the mayor of a small town in the Mississippi Delta, town of Moorhead. I don't know if you ever heard of Moorhead, but you might have heard where the Southern crosses the Yellow Dog. There's 2 railroads intersect there that we are famous for, and we are proud of our community. Might not be, well, like Peter, coming behind Peter is kind of rough. I'm not an eloquent speaker, but I am a person who loves my hometown. That's what we share with the love of our city. I'm grateful, much grateful to Chris Massengale and Delta Regional Authority for all the help that they have given us. And you know, I really don't think I would have gotten this help if they hadn't seen us putting the effort into the community, trying to make it better. All of the videos you saw, probably none of them would really say much about what Moorhead is, because in Moorhead, we have a lot of abandoned buildings. Our downtowns are dilapidated. You know, it's hard to bring them back because all of the mom and pop stores has long gone away. There's no more, you know, the superstores took over. So all of those stores are long closed, and the buildings are just sitting empty. So what we do, we just do the best we can with what we have to work with. My wife and I, my wife Jonna, we both born in Moorhead, and we moved away, and we lived in Missouri for 40 years. And after retiring, we returned home to try to make our community a better place because of the love of our community, because what we have seen coming back home over the years, we wanted to try to make it better, not as being mayor, but just as being citizens of our community. By the way, John is with me, and this month we celebrate 49 years of marriage. We work closely together in everything. Over the years, we've done a lot. We did a lot in Missouri, just trying to make it better. Wherever we were, we tried to make it better. I only have 5 minutes, so I'm gonna make it good. Well, let me start by saying when we moved back to Moorhead in 2007, we didn't have a clue what we were going to do. All we know, we wanted to work. We joined the Chamber of Commerce. We started a little organization called Friends of Moorhead Children. And we worked with that, and then lo and behold, in 2008, people were encouraging me to run for mayor. So, and I never dreamed that I would be in politics at all. In 2009, I was elected mayor of the city of Moorhead, and that was just the beginning of the work. We have one section of the town where there's a line of 2-story building that wraps around the corner, all vacant, all broken out windows, just a terrible looking place. And what we did, my wife had a brilliant idea. We went to the garage at home and we took plywood, and she took the overhead projector. I always think she's crazy when she starts these ideas, but it always works. And we took the overhead projector and we traced out whatever we wanted to put on this plywood. We made flower pots to put up in the upstairs window. We actually made windows on this plywood, and we boarded up these windows to make it look like there were actually businesses there, and it really worked. People from all over the country come to Moorhead and they look at that and they think, wow, that is a good idea. That was a good idea. And we call that Moorhead Beautification Project, and it really worked. Right in front of that project, we have an old historic train depot. The depot has sat there for 40 years vacant, just waiting to be demolished, waiting on the city to come up with enough money to tear it down. But we come up with an idea. No, we don't want to tear it down. This is a historic site in our community, right here, right downtown Moorhead. So what we did, we applied through small municipality, and we were awarded a grant for $100,000. By the time we got done with the engineering fees, we probably had $75,000, $80,000 to work with, which was enough to restore the exterior of that building. So we took that money, we restored the exterior, and then we had a little bit left for HVAC to do the heating and cooling on the interior. But still, we're left with the outside looking good and nothing on the inside. But we, as citizens, started to rally, and we sold bricks, autographed bricks by the famous railroad crossing. We had placed them in the ground, and we raised money as citizens to restore the interior of that place. And now it's the best place in Moorhead. It's the Moorhead Visitor Center, and believe it or not, little old Moorhead, 2,300 people population, but we have people from all over the country who actually come to Moorhead following the railroad crossing and following the Blues Trail, who stop in our little community, and they see the love that we pour out in that community. And people send email. I get email from all over the country from people saying, Mayor, you're doing a good job in that town. Y'all keep up the good work. And for our efforts in that community, there are people who are willing to chip in and help us. Peter, the potholes, I hear it every day. I hear it from people who I know by now that I cannot please. I wish we could do something with the pothole. We have that problem all over the country now, and we can't get money to fix the roads and bridges. But I can get money to maybe put in a walking trail, in which we have. We've done all that we could to make that town a better place to live. I still hear about the dogs and the ditches and people. I guess you can't expect for everybody to appreciate what you're doing, because There are people who can't see the beautification project. There are people who can't see the value in the depot that we've remodeled. There's people who can't see, I didn't tell you about it, but we got a project. We're going to install historic lightings from one end of the city limit to the other end of the city limits, going through our community college there. And it's a dark area out by 82 highway at night, and people travel through there and they can't see anything, but we visualize when they put this nice lighting along this highway, driving down 82 highway and looking to the right or to the left, and you'll see, ooh, where do these lights go? I think it will bring a positive attention to our city, the little city of Morehead. So we're just working hard. We love our town. We love our community. We love our young people. We love our old people. We believe that Morehead is the greatest place in the world to retire and to call it home, or even to raise children. We think it's the greatest place in the world, and we're working hard to make this happen. So we're just proud of our community, and what Peter was saying, it's just for the love of the community. Believe me, believe it or not, it's definitely not for the money. We do it because we love what we live and we want to put back. I say it all the time, as long as I got breath in my body, whether I'm an elected official or whether I'm just a citizen of that community, I'm going to give it all that I have. It's a joy to me to be able to try to help bring back something to our community. So, it's a dying community, as some people would think. And then our children got to have this place. This is what they got to call home. When we were coming up, it was a hustling, bustling place, people everywhere. And now it's almost dead. So we're trying to bring it back. It's still Morehead, Mississippi. It's still our hometown. And we're doing all that we can to make it a better place to live. I think my time is up, but it's been, because see, I could talk about my hometown probably for that 45 minutes that Peter spoke. Because I love it. I love my hometown. I love giving back to some of the things that were given to me as I was coming up, and I just appreciate you guys having us here today. Thank you, Chris, for recommending me to be here today. So thank you, and God bless all of you.